मुंडावत दिन गए, अजहु न मिलिया राम। राम नाम कनु क्या करे जे, मन के औरे काम कबीरा, मन के औरे काम। मूंढ मुंढावत दिन गए, अजहु न मिलिया राम। राम नाम कनु क्या करे जे, मन के औरे काम कबीरा, मन के औरे काम। It's just so nice even to just recite these dohas. I don't know whether you get the feeling. Pardon me if I'm not able to infuse that feeling, but it is, if it is sung well, it infuses a very fine sense of devotion or feeling. So the title given to this doha, it says, ages have passed. Past what? Ages have passed shaving the head. Yet no union with the Lord, which is the Lord Rama. Mundha mundhavat dinagaye. Other day I had to meet someone whom I had met a few days earlier, and he was beyond recognition. Why? Guruji, I have gone to Tirupati and head was shaven. I had seen him with little hair, and now I'm seeing with no hair. I couldn't recognize him. Mundhu mundhavat. Yet, Kabirji says, yet no union with Rama. Recitation of God's name. Ram Naam kanu kya kare. Ram Naam is futile. Man ke aure kaam. When the mind is engaged elsewhere. What is it talking about here? Thank you, Gayatri Ma. So what is the doha saying here? Can you stop sharing, Gayatri Ma, please? Some technical issue, huh?
Guruji, I got lost. What is it like? I got disconnected.
We thought so. No, I just wanted you to stop sharing the doha, and it's all. No, you're still under control, no? Okay. Kashish, what do you think the doha is saying?
Guruji, I think it's a little similar to the rosary bead doha that was, I think, number 14. In that it's talking about how I know it mentions if your mind is elsewhere, but also like if your heart is not in it, if you're not fully devoted, if you're not completely focused on the name of the Lord that you're chanting, then it's just for show. There's no real devotion behind it. There's no real meaning to thinking of the Lord's name or saying those words.
Yes, your comparison is very right. The doha 14 spoke about the rosary bead. The mind is wandering while you're rotating the rosary bead in your hand. The tongue is twisting in the mouth. The mind is wandering everywhere. That isn't meditation, he's saying, isn't it? Yeah, there's a right comparison. So ages have passed. You've been shaving your head, yet no union. So what is he? In fact, you're right. A little, perhaps a little subtle point here, Kashish, what you youngsters would appreciate. Why I say you youngsters is because I have had many people, even recently, I met somebody in a workshop, and they came and told me that there's a disconnect between us and our children. There's a disconnect because we want our children to imbibe these values and have respect to our rich tradition culture, but we're not able to pass it on to them. There's, as it were, a thin line, a filter, which we're not able to, everything is being filtered. And the filter is the filtering of questioning and reasoning, isn't it? The younger generation are very rational, isn't it, Kashish?
I think
You
so,
all
yes.
question, isn't it? So you question everything and you want a reason or the logic behind it, or why should I do it, or what is its implication? And they were lost for whatever they were doing and why they were doing. So they were not able to convince their own children to appreciate what's being practiced. So the younger generation, they criticize, and same thing is Kabirji criticizing. What is Kabirji criticizing is the spirituality being practiced externally. He's against the show of external spirituality. And the direct criticism is towards the, not hypocrisy, sir. Sethuji, please don't get me wrong. Kabirji is not saying hypocrisy. He's not saying those people who go and tonsure their head are hypocritical. No. He's saying your accent, your importance is more towards non-essentials of spiritual than the essentials of spiritual. That is different to being hypocritical. Are you able to get the difference, Sethuji? There's a difference between
Bhajagovindam, he talks about hypocrisy.
there he talks of hypocrisy. Right. But what's the difference here?
Here, your mind is wandering in spite of all this.
Or in spite of all the practices, you practice with great devotion, devout practices. Yet the mind is not stopped wandering. The mind is elsewhere. So what is the thing? The thing is because you are practicing spirituality externally. You are practicing asceticism externally. Directly referring to one such practice of tonsuring the head. Vasantama, can you mention any more such devout spiritual practices people do religiously? It could be any religion, doesn't matter only Hindu religion. It can be any religion.
The walk, it is like walking on the fire.
Okay.
Then piercing their paths. Sometimes they pierce through the sin. Adi Puram in the Subramania Swami. These things are coming to my mind right now.
I think I just lost you. I don't know about others. You were saying about Subramania Swami temple.
Yes, that is the time they a kavadi, they take the kavadi and dance Adipuram.
Taipusam.
Taipusam and Adi.
I've seen enough of Thaipusam.
Malaysia.
Malaysia and Singapore, that part of the world is very heavily followed. Right. Right. Yes. A lot of that, yes. Soumyam is saying wearing black dress to Shabarimala. That's only symbolic. Yeah, you can say so. People again put on a garb. They're not, see, I'm not saying that they are hypocrites, nor should you say that they're being hypocrite. They're genuinely doing, but they don't achieve the objective. Why? What does wearing a black robe symbolize?
You're not available. I mean, the outside world doesn't attract you.
Gayatri Ma has another interpretation to it. Yes, Ma?
I want to announce to the world that I am not available. Don't call me for all such things. When I wear a garb of a sainthood, I want to announce instead of telling people that I am not available for all such things.
Sannachi color, huh?
Yes.
But we are talking about black color. What does black color symbolize?
I wouldn't know what they wear for. That is a ritual like they do it.
Okay, obviously symbolic. You know, when you buy blinds to the house, to certain areas of your home, you would say, I want blackout curtains. No, blackout means you cut off the world, the light, the sun or the heat into your that specific bedroom. You know, so you're cutting off. So a black symbolizes where you are cut off from the world. I am not available for my normal worldly transactions. You know, so even when you do so, even that person may be doing business. He carries on his daily chores, but the way people address you also changes. They call you Swami, just at least for those 40 days or a month or a period, you are putting all that mala. So again, it's a practice with the objective of changing your mind from where it is to something else, at least for that short period. So I could be doing physical practices, bathing with cold water, eating only specific meals, walking barefooted and whatever, whatnot, you know, doing puja, whatever. But all these are related to the exterior of my body, exterior spiritual practices. Isn't it, Vasantama?
Yes.
All of that. You know, you may even want to walk up to Shabarimala, you know, right on foot and things like that. Even though I haven't done that,
And
I've heard.
mingle with the family much. They are stay in a separate room.
Correct. There is, you maintain a strict adherence, a strict discipline and strict vows you take for that 40 days.
Twice a lot.
Yeah. But all of that is meant for what?
To divert your mind to the higher.
To change the mind to the higher. But if your mind is still engaged in the worldly transactions, that action doesn't serve your purpose. It's like in a hurry, you have taken the tiffin box to your work or your school. And it happens more often. You have taken the tiffin box, but the content is not there. The lady in the house has prepared lovely fresh food for you for the day, but she's forgot to transfer the food from the vessel into the box. But what I've done in my hurry, I've just taken the box and left. So when I go, there is only empty box. There's no, the carrier is there, but the contents are not there. So the external spiritual practices are mere carriers. The contents is something else. You must differentiate between the two. One is dependent on the other. One cannot go without the other. But you understand both must be there. The container and the contents. So if I can ask Varshama, what is the contents?
Oh, I'm not getting the right word really.
But do you see that there exists something other than the practice itself?
Yeah, the external practices, that's what you are asking?
Yes. So one is the external practices,
Yeah,
and then there is something else than the external practice. There's something internal, isn't it?
yeah. So going within. So the content, I mean, that is the higher self, right?
What
If
you
you
get out of it is the higher self.
Mhm.
But while I am practicing these external rituals, I need to remind myself of something else while I'm doing. Even I would go to the extent and say, you may perform these rituals in a minimized manner, in a diffused manner. You don't have to go through an elaborate process of rituals, but as long as you have the essentials. In fact, I'm saying in the familiar language, we often say the non-essentials vis-a-vis the essentials. That clarity has to be there. Okay, Ma?
Hmm.
So the external becomes the non-essential, and there's something internal which is essential. What is the essential is what we are probing. I'm glad you are able to follow. Yeah, please go ahead. You have something to say?
No.
Okay, right.
Yes.
No problem. Right. Any idea, Harish, what is essential here?
Guruji, I'm still thinking. I'm processing it. I don't
shall
have the
wait.
answer right there.
You have another minute or so to process it. No pressure, Harish. Please think along. No pressure.
Thank you, Guruji.
What are the what is the essential? What is essential without which it's a mere shell without any contents? It's a mere container without any contents. And if you are differing with this argument, if you have a contrasting view, those who perform the rituals by itself should achieve the objective of mastering the mind. That's the acid test of essential is the mind must be under control. That is what he's saying, isn't it? If your mind still wander, manke aure kaam, if the mind itself is going here and there, hither and thither, then the objective of the spiritual practice is defeated, isn't it? So much of religiosity, so much of ritualistic practices, but you mean to say everybody has got the mastery of their mind? Nay. The society would have a far better place than what it is today. So the non-essentials are getting a precedence over the essentials. I don't want to criticize, but I'm just saying, even when we do chanting of mantras and slokas, even you go to the extent of doing Vedic chanting, when you do this chanting, what does it create? Somebody just said, Setuji, in a different context, you said, I'm just quoting that, sir, conduciveness. When you do a chant, and even when you listen to Vedic chanting and all, and it's done in an authentic way, it creates a reverberating effect. It has a certain resonance. It has a certain vibration. It has a certain effect to calm the mind. But it is there only at that moment. But if you were to sit back with those profound Vedic mantras, the Upanishadic chants, the Upanishadic verses, but you decode them, examine them, and do a study and research on what these slokas are saying, that's a different exercise. One is to merely chant the mantra. Another thing is to examine, study, reflect, and take the gist of wisdom contained in those mantras. These are two different exercises, isn't it? So one has a literary beauty, as we say, it has a literary beauty in it. Another thing is the philosophical kernel, the philosophical message. So if you just talk of this, the chant is the literary beauty. It has a benefit, but it's just momentary or just short-lived. But if you get into the philosophical kernel or the philosophical wisdom contained, that is permanent. So the philosophical message, Kashish, is what? The philosophical message vis-a-vis the mere chant is, in just to what I've said just now. I've said the essentials and non-essentials. Am I right?
Yes, Guruji.
So what would be the
written down-
essential?
The essential is taking the philosophical kernel versus the literary beauty of the chant.
Rather than just the literary beauty of the chant. But you should experience that literary beauty as well.
Yes.
You have ever experienced Vedic chanting? I request you, even if I do not know what time would it be for you, but the coming weekend, we're having the inauguration, and we have actually invited the Vedic Pandits. We want them to come and chant these auspicious Vedic mantras. So the entire premise will be reverberating with this Vedic chant. I'm not demeaning when I say this. We are in fact endorsing it. In fact, we are inviting them. And at the same time, you must understand to what extent it serves you in your journey and where you need to leave this and take the next step beyond it. There's a difference, isn't it? So in that light, one is that by itself will not give me moksha. One that by itself will not give me transformation. It's conducive. Either I chant the Vedic mantra or I chant. I'm only reminded of, there was a time where everybody were wearing lungis and doing lungi dance. You heard that? You know that, Kashish, isn't it? You heard that song?
No. Guruji.
Which world are you, Kashish? Which world are you? I envy your world because you're disconnected from the world. You have reached a state of uparati, mentally withdrawn from the world. I don't know, it must have been a decade or so ago. Am I right? Men and women were seen wearing lungis only. Why? Because they want to do lungi dance. So what they were doing, lungi dance, lungi dance, lungi dance, lungi dance they were doing. Now, if I sing a lungi dance song, or if I chant the Vedic mantra, it has a certain resonance. Almost if I say once more lungi dance, I see a few people will log out of the class. I have come on a Monday morning, 5:30 Brahma Muhurtam, I'm attending, and Guruji is singing lungi dance song. What, Srinivas Reddy Garu? I know, he's the first one. He has opened the door also behind him to run out of the classroom. The door also is open.
Definitely, Guruji, this is not what expected.
I can read your mind, sir. I can read your mind. No, I'm only trying to draw
Yes,
a
of course.
difference
Yes.
of what the chant itself does an effect to the mind. But again, it is, Kashish, non-essential. Am I right? It is non-essential. This difference is not understood, nor highlighted, nor emphasized. So people are just involved consumed continuously, believing that that practice alone will take them further. We're not criticizing, they are not hypocrites. They are very genuinely doing it, but they believe that by itself is entirety. So the essential, I have not spelled it out. What is essential here? I've just said essential is a philosophical kernel, but what is that essential? Essential is the wisdom or the knowledge that backs that very activity. Every action you do has an implication. It conveys something to you. It means something to you. It speaks volumes of what you are doing and why you're doing. It speaks in volumes. But it's like an illiterate sitting in a library in that voluminous literature around him. He remains to be illiterate because he doesn't know how to read or write. So he's just a clerk in the librarian. He's a librarian, an illiterate clerk amongst all the wisdom of all the profound scholars. You are an illiterate librarian. You can be performing all the profound rituals, all the great spiritual practices, but you are a spiritual ignoramus, just like an illiterate librarian in a library. You are just illiterate, not knowing what you're doing, why you're doing. The acid test to this is mind is still engaged elsewhere. If you do what you are doing, your mind must be pulled out from what you're doing, must be pegged onto higher. If that objective is not achieved, your accent is on the non-essentials. This is the thumb rule. This is the acid test. You do it for yourself. I don't have to sit in judgment, or you should not go outward to find out. Just find out if what I'm doing genuinely. Again, I'm repeating and again repeating it. It is not talking of those who are hypocritical. Hypocritical, different category. We're all genuinely doing. We do our pujas, we do our rituals, we go to spiritual pilgrimages, we do a lot of activities in the name of wanting to become a better person. But does that really transform in changing the mind and its nature? If it doesn't, the accent is on the outer shell than the contents. The accent is on the exterior of spirituality being practiced than the interior. You've got to absorb, get into the implication, the philosophical kernel, which is being conveyed in the ritual. Yes, Harish.
Guruji, is this the same context, the ideal versus the ideal? Does it relate to this, Guruji? When we are reaching the ideal, we are worshipping the ideal to reach the ideal. Is it pretty much in the same?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. That is when you develop an attachment to the idol.
Okay.
That is different. But here we're talking about the non-essentials and the essentials.
Okay.
Exterior versus interior.
Clear.
Okay.
Thank you, Guruji.
Right. Please ponder over it. We'll come back to it again, and then we'll revisit it. It's like you go to a doctor and you say, I'm doing everything that I need to do, but every possible thing in my health is wrong. All my measurements are gone haywire. My blood pressure is high, my blood sugar is high, my cholesterol is high, that is aching, this aching, yet I'm doing everything. Doctor will say, what are you doing? First of all, tell me. He's going to question what you're doing. He's not going to jump in and say something wrong with you, but he says, there's something not right. Let's examine what you're doing. Isn't it? Exactly the same way. If your mind is not mastered, Kabir ji is saying, examine what you're doing. You're caught up in the non-essentials, man. Get to the essentials. So you got to take this Doha in that spirit. Okay. All right. Yes, Rajima, over to you.
Namaskaram. We are happy to take this opportunity to invite you all to the inauguration of the Wisdom Institute next weekend, the 9th and 10th of April. The flyer with the program details has been shared. For those of you who can be with us only in spirit, we will be sharing the online link where you will be able to watch the entire live proceedings. We will again share these flyers and the online link in the satsang group. We look forward to your participation. In view of the late evening program on the 10th, the class on Monday, the 11th of April will not be held. Hari Om. Over to you, Guruji, for the Shanti Mantra.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.